Did Secretary Hegseth tell you before he ordered the halt in flights to Ukraine of military weapons?
I can't comment on that because I don't remember that. I don't remember ever hearing that, to what you're claiming now.
So your understanding is he never told you he was going to halt these flights?
I just know we're providing them assistance now, but the war ultimately has to end.
In 2016, you stated the following: from his repression of the Russian people and the assassination of his critics, to his dangerous invasion of Ukraine and the occupation of Crimea, to his threats against our NATO allies in Central and Eastern Europe, to the war crimes committed by Russian forces, Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability. You would agree with your prior statement, right, that Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability?
I would agree that in my role as Secretary of State, my job is to bring Russia to the table to end a war, and that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to end a war so that more people don't die.
Did you just see that? A sitting congressman walks into a hearing with a stack of old tweets and a smug smile, thinking he's about to corner the Secretary of State of the United States. And Rubio just sat there, cool as ice, and dismantled him piece by piece without even raising his voice. No court, no congressman, no gotcha question is going to rattle this man. This is exactly what it looks like when someone who actually understands the Constitution sits across from someone who's just playing for the cameras. If you're sick and tired of watching Democrats embarrass themselves trying to trap people smarter than them, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you're new, and stay to the very end, because I'm about to break down every single moment of this beautiful takedown. The full clip is coming. Don't you dare look away.
Representative Lieu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here today. As a member of the legislative branch, I don't have a special exemption to violate the law. You would agree with me, wouldn't you, that in America, no one is above the law?
Of course.
Okay. And in our system of government, it's Congress that makes the laws, the executive branch that executes the laws, and the judicial branch, when there's a dispute, that says what the law is. Is that right?
Within the context of separation of powers, yes.
Okay. And the reason that due process is so fundamental to America is before we put the entire weight of the federal government and snatch someone off the street, we might want to ask, hey, do you have something to say about that? Might we have the wrong person? And in the case of Mr. Garcia, the Trump administration admitted in court that they mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, said the Trump administration has to facilitate getting him back. Do you believe the administration has to follow that Supreme Court order?
Well, I don't believe he was wrongfully deported. He's an Salvadorian citizen.
That's not my
illegally in the
question.
United
Do you believe
States.
the Trump administration has to follow the Supreme Court 9-0 unanimous decision?
Within the context of separation of powers. That
Okay.
No court can tell me how to conduct foreign policy. They can't tell me what I have to say to a president of another country, nor do I need to tell them what I told the president of another country, because I can't conduct
I'm just
foreign
asking
policy.
you, do you believe the Trump administration has to follow the unanimous Supreme Court
I believe we
decision?
are following it.
Okay, so my next question is, what steps have you or the State Department taken to facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia, who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
The conduct of our foreign policy is an executive function, and how I conduct
I'm
it,
just
I don't need to
asking
share
you,
with you.
well,
and
let
I
me
don't
ask you
need to
this.
share with the court.
Have you or the State Department taken any steps to facilitate?
We've taken
the
steps,
return?
but I'm not going to tell you what they are, and I don't have to, because we conduct the foreign policy of the United States, and I can't conduct diplomacy with a
And
foreign
so-
leader if I come to committees and tell you what they said to me, what I said to them, and more certainly a
Now,
court can't
so
tell me to say
you
that
have
either.
taken steps to facilitate Mr. Garcia's return.
We've made those. We've made that assertion, and we've made those assertions in court, and
All right,
we've
thank
complied.
you. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask you now about Ukraine. On August 24th, 2022, you tweeted the following: in the past 6 months since Putin's criminal invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainians have shown incredible bravery and strength as they fight to defend their homeland. On Ukraine's Independence Day, the free world applauds their courage and celebrates Ukraine's sovereignty. And then also in 2022, you said the people of Ukraine are tough people who will never accept being ruled by Putin. I want to ask you, I assume you continue to believe what you said in 2022, right? That we should celebrate Ukraine's sovereignty and that the people of Ukraine will never accept being ruled by Putin, right?
Yeah, that's why we're trying to end the war.
All right. On April 30th, 2018, you tweeted, glad to see State Department confirm delivery of Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. The U.S. should continue empowering Ukraine and other allies to defend against the threat of Russian aggression. You would agree with your prior statement that the U.S. should continue to support Ukraine against Russian aggression, right?
We've supported them more than anyone in the world.
All right. Unfortunately, it appears Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went rogue and decided unilaterally to stop support for Ukraine earlier this year. various news organizations reported that Secretary Hegseth paused military support to Ukraine without President Trump's knowledge. I'm going to read you from one article dated May 6, quote, Pete Hegseth canceled military aid flights to Ukraine just a week into Trump's second term without the president even knowing, according to Reuters. The order initially sparked mass confusion within the administration as national security officials in the White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department couldn't figure out who ordered the halt in flights. This is yet another example of the chaos and lack of cohesion that Hegseth has brought to the Pentagon from day one. Did Secretary Hegseth tell you before he ordered the halt in flights to Ukraine of military weapons?
I can't comment on that because I don't remember that. I don't remember ever hearing that, to what you're claiming now.
So your understanding is he never told you he was going to halt these flights?
I just know we're providing them assistance now, but the war ultimately has to end.
In 2016, you stated the following: from his repression of the Russian people and the assassination of his critics, to his dangerous invasion of Ukraine and the occupation of Crimea, to his threats against our NATO allies in Central and Eastern Europe, to the war crimes committed by Russian forces, Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability. You would agree with your prior statement, right, that Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability?
I would agree that in my role as Secretary of State, my job is to bring Russia to the table to end a war, and that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to end a war so that more people don't die.
Thank you. And trying to end the war, I simply note that Putin on Palm Sunday launched a barrage of missiles, killed a bunch of civilians. Right before his conversation with Trump recently, he launched a bunch of missiles, killed a bunch of civilians. So clearly, Putin is giving the middle finger to you and to the president. I urge you to defeat Putin on the battlefield. That's the only way to get him to the negotiating table.
Ted Lieu walked into that hearing room like he had just solved a murder. Old tweets printed out, Supreme Court citations locked and loaded, even a Pete Hegseth side attack ready to go. He had the whole thing choreographed. And Rubio burned the entire script to the ground without even breaking a sweat. Let's start with the Garcia trap, because that was Lieu's big moment, his crown jewel. He wanted Rubio to either bow to a federal judge on live television or look like he was defying the Supreme Court. That was the entire game. And Rubio looked him dead in the eyes and said what every constitutional scholar already knows. No court on earth gets to dictate how the Secretary of State conducts American foreign policy. That is not stubbornness. That is not defiance. That is the Constitution working exactly as the founders intended. The left has spent years screaming about democracy and institutions, and the moment an executive branch official correctly asserts his constitutional authority, suddenly they act scandalized. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Then Lieu pulls out the tweets. 2022 Marco Rubio tweets. That was his silver bullet. And Rubio didn't even flinch. He said, yeah, that's exactly why we're trying to end the war. One sentence. The whole theatric performance Lieu had rehearsed collapsed instantly, because here is what Democrats simply cannot process. Wanting peace is not the same as betraying Ukraine. Wanting the killing to stop is not weakness. Having an actual endgame instead of shoveling weapons into a forever war with no strategy and no exit is called leadership. Rubio gets that. Lieu doesn't. And the difference showed on every inch of both their faces. The Hegseth detour was nothing but a media talking point dressed up as a congressional question, and Rubio didn't take the bait for a single second. Not his circus. He stayed locked in, stayed focused, and refused to be pulled into whatever the cable news narrative of the week happened to be. And Lieu's closing argument, his big dramatic finish after all that buildup, was telling Rubio that Putin is giving the administration the middle finger. That is what he landed on. That is the grand finale. When you have no facts left and your gotcha questions have all collapsed, apparently you just describe hand gestures and call it foreign policy analysis. Rubio never flinched, never hedged, never apologized. This is what it looks like when a man who actually understands diplomacy, the Constitution, and the weight of representing America on the world stage sits across from a politician who is purely, transparently performing for a 30-second clip. The adults are running American foreign policy now, and no amount of old tweets is going to change that. Smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.